Welcome to my channel. Learn English with interesting story.
In the dusty lanes of a small village, a little girl was born in 1963. Her name was Phoolan, which means flower. This flower would grow among thorns, and one day she would become a storm that shook the nation. Phoolan Devi was born into a poor family of the Malla community, a caste that worked hard but was treated as inferior. From the time she could walk, she saw how the world looked down upon people like her. The rich and the powerful took what they wanted, and the poor had no voice. By the age of 11, she was married off to a man nearly 3 times her age. Her husband abused her and treated her cruelly. For months, the young girl cried silently, until one day, she decided she would not suffer anymore. She ran away, not knowing that the world outside her home could be even more dangerous. When she returned to her village, people didn't protect her. They called her names, humiliated her, and blamed her for leaving her husband. This was a time when being a woman of lower caste meant having no power at all. But Phoolan was not a girl who would remain silent forever. One day, because of a land dispute with upper caste men, Phoolan was beaten and dragged into a false police case. She was arrested, insulted, and later released. But the humiliation burned deep in her heart. Not long after, she was kidnapped by a group of bandits, the dacoits of the Chambal Valley. At first she was scared, a young girl surrounded by guns and outlaws. But inside her, something had already begun to change. Among the gang was a man named Vikram Malla, kind, fearless, and from her own community. He stood by her, protected her, and treated her with respect when others didn't. For the first time, Phoolan felt what dignity meant. Together, they became partners, not just in the gang, but in spirit. She learned to hold a gun, to ride a horse, to survive in the wild valleys of Chambal. Soon, stories began to spread of a new woman dacoit, brave, angry, and unstoppable. But power in the world of bandits never lasts forever. A rival gang led by Shri Ram and Lala Ram, both upper caste men, wanted control. They attacked the camp, murdered Vikram Malla before her eyes, and captured Phoolan. What followed was unimaginable cruelty. Phoolan was taken to a village named Bemai. For days, she was beaten, paraded, and assaulted by several men. Her body was broken, but her spirit refused to die. In those moments of darkness, she made a silent. She would return to Bemai. 2 years passed. Phoolan had escaped and rebuilt her own gang. This time, she was the leader. Her name now echoed in the valleys as the Bandit Queen. On February 14, 1981, she rode into Bemai with her gang. She called out the names of the men who had wronged her. When the villagers refused to bring them out, the rage inside her exploded. Gunfire filled the air. When it ended, 20 men lay dead. The news spread across India like wildfire. Some called her a monster, others called her a goddess of revenge. For the first time, the world noticed the pain of a woman who had been ignored all her life. After the Bemai massacre, police from 3 states began hunting her. Posters with her name appeared everywhere, dead or alive. But catching Phoolan Devi was not easy. For 2 years, she lived in the ravines, always moving, always fighting. Then, in 1983, she decided to end the chase. She agreed to surrender, but only on her own terms. Her conditions were simple. She would not be executed. Her gang members would get reduced sentences, and she would lay down her weapons before a photo of Mahatma Gandhi, a symbol of peace. On that historic day, Phoolan Devi walked out of the ravines dressed in red, holding a rifle. Thousands gathered to see the woman who had challenged India's caste and gender system. When she handed over her gun, there was silence, and then thunderous applause. The Bandit Queen had surrendered. Phoolan spent 11 long years in jail. She was never proven guilty of all the crimes she was accused of, but she remained behind bars. In those years, she changed. Her anger became purpose. She learned to read, to write, and to understand the system that had failed her. When she was released in 1994, she was no longer a dacoit. She was ready to become something greater. After her release, Phoolan joined the Samajwadi Party. She said, "I picked up the gun because no one listened to me. Now I will pick up the pen and the law." In the elections that followed, the people of Mirzapur elected her as their member of parliament. The girl who once begged for justice now sat in India's parliament, speaking for the poor, the women, and the forgotten. She worked to protect women from violence, to fight caste discrimination, and to bring equality. People saw her as a symbol, a reminder that even those at the bottom of society could rise to the top. But destiny had one final twist. On the 25th of July 2001, Phoolan Devi returned home from Parliament. As she stepped out of her car, 3 men appeared and fired at her. She died instantly. The killers said they wanted revenge for Bemai, but what they really ended was a life that had already suffered enough. Phoolan Devi was gone, but the legend of the Bandit Queen had just begun. Even today, people debate who Phoolan Devi really was: a murderer, a victim, a hero? Perhaps she was all three, a reflection of the injustice that breeds violence. Her story is not just about revenge. It is about the power to fight back when the world silences you. Phoolan once said, "I didn't choose this life. The world forced me to fight."
Today, when we hear the name Phoolan Devi, we think of the Bandit Queen. But behind that title was a woman who began her life with poverty, pain, and humiliation. A woman who was pushed again and again into darkness until she finally learned to fight back. Phoolan Devi did not ask to be strong. Circumstances made her strong. She was not born a rebel. She became one because society left her no other choice. For millions of people at the bottom of India's caste ladder, Phoolan became a symbol, not of violence, but of rebellion. She represented the anger of every woman who is silenced, every child who grew up in fear, every poor person who was crushed by the powerful. Whether her actions were right or wrong, that debate will continue. But one truth cannot be denied. Phoolan Devi forced the world to notice the injustice that everyone else tried to hide. Most rebels die in the shadows, but Phoolan walked out of the ravines and into parliament. Her journey, from a village girl to a child bride to a dacoit to a national leader, is one of the most extraordinary transformations in Indian history. She proved that even the most wounded souls can rise higher than anyone ever imagined, and that a woman who once begged for justice could one day become the voice of justice. Phoolan Devi's story teaches us many things. First, that when justice is denied, people are forced to fight for themselves. Second, that no past is dark enough to stop someone from creating a new future. Third, that real courage is born from pain, suffering, and survival. Fourth, that society must protect its weakest, because the system often fails them. And finally, even the most broken soul can rise.
Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.